Welcome to the People's Guild.
Each week we explore the Splinterland universe with guests from all across the mythical land of Praetoria.
Join us on our journey as we discuss the evolution of the game, the strategy, the lore, and the exciting path that lies ahead.
To support the People's Guild, make sure you subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, and also check us out on PeakD, YouTube, and Twitter.
Send your questions, suggestions, and epic battles in our comments through Twitter or email at thepeoplesguildspl@gmail.com. We'll feature the best in our episodes and maybe airdrop you some prizes.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, another episode. A wonderful guest. We've been trying to wrangle some time, gone back and forth about whether or not we wanted to make this episode happen. I'm very happy to report that it has in fact happened, and it's here live in the flesh for you guys. Real quickly, I want to shout out Crypto Eater, Equalis, Push and Shove. Saw some the initial launch took place this week for Push and Shove, and early statistics are green. Everything seems to be going well. Plan is to get him on and at some point in the next couple of weeks to kind of talk shop with us and tell us what's happening with Push and Shove and give us a status report on what's happening over at Equalis. But yeah, so stay tuned for that. But for now, we've got this guy's kind of a living legend in the game. He's one of, if not the gold standard for human players out there in Praetoria. So yeah, we're very happy to present this one to you. Welcome, Mondroid. Good to see you, man.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, man. Thanks for joining us. Heard so many good things about you from people, so I'm really excited to get you on the podcast and talk some shop with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, beforehand we were just kind of discussing things, going back, and we are talking, about the changes to, back when we changed from no bots in modern. And so, yeah, I wonder if you just go back over that. Tell us how you were feeling, before that change happened, and kind of how you feel after that.
Yeah, so I mean, at that point, I was pretty fed up with the game. It's just, playing AI every battle, and it kind of just spread. The bots started to get pretty good, and then more and more people were unable to beat them. And so, before you knew it, pretty much everybody was botting. And then, the players that were still going at it manually were just struggling, and it was just, it kind of got to a point where I wasn't sure I even wanted to play anymore. I was thinking about quitting, and then that proposal came along to ban bots from modern, and that was kind of like a big turning point for me to stay with the game. And it got a little better after that.
Now, were you playing up at that champion level at that time?
Yeah, on Clove's account I was, because she was, maxed Untamed, maxed everything, and my account I had to rent a lot if I was going to be competitive. But yeah, I was always trying to go for a leaderboard and stuff, and finish as high as I could.
Did you ever think about just mailing it in and trying to use a bot yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I did used to use XBOT on my main account for a time there, just because it was like, it just played better than me, if I'm being honest. So it was just like, why am I going to play and spend the time doing it when the bot is getting similar or better results,
And not to mention everybody else was competing with a bot.
Right.
Yeah, I wonder, like we mentioned off air, I went back and listened to our conversation with Syler when he hopped on the People's Guild with us last summer. It was after the proposal had passed, before the proposal was implemented. So there was, I think it took a couple of months between proposal passing and actual implementation of no bot modern. And one of Syler's big arguments was that the bot, or the battle helper, was actually a great learning tool for folks. So I'm curious, Mondroid, what is your take on that sentiment? Do you feel like I think there's certainly some plays that I think I may have picked up from time to time from watching, what does the battle helper suggest? What does the bot play in these types of rule sets? But, I'm more curious. And I'm not going to compare myself to, you guys up at the top of the leaderboard. I'm 1,000 rating points below you guys. So I'm curious for from the perspective of being a high level player, do you feel like there's any weight to Sylar's argument that it is a learning tool? I think we have to take the fact that Sylar argues it's a learning tool with a grain of salt. He's obviously trying to defend his product and argue for his own best interest. But I'm just curious, to what degree do you feel like there's weight in that perspective?
So, in my opinion, I think there is some weight to it, Like I remember running my bot and then studying the teams it built and learning from it. I think that's, legit. I just don't think that's what most people used it for. I think most people just used it for an easy route to being good. Yeah.
There's lots of tools as well. Like I know even XBOT has that tool now where it'll analyze your battles and past battles and allow you to make changes. And I'm kind of all for a learning tool if you have something that says, hey, what should I have played here? Or I forget what was we've talked about this the other week, but what was the website that I'm not sure if
Splinter
it's still
Tools
running as well? Yeah, Splinter Tools, where it could say, oh yeah, in this rule set, here's the teams that are like most commonly played. Like those are ways of having a learning tool that sort of don't violate the terms of service, right? Because you're just kind of using that as a tool to analyze what you did or what you could have done in the past, as opposed to telling you what to do in real time.
Yeah, so that's like after pretty much any battle I lose, I put it in there and see what the percentages were and how much of it was RNG, how much of it was just that team's actually good or whatever, and then kind of learn and study and just make little changes, see like was there something else I could have done that would have beat that, or what did it think about it overall, and
Mm.
try to make notes or take, just learn from it as much as I can, use each loss like that as a way to get better. But yeah, as long as it's not in real time, when it's just telling you what team to put in before you even make the team, and that's just relying on it too much.
Yeah. How often when you lose a battle, is it something you could have done different, or is it something that, well, it looks like I just got, crushed by RNG here?
I mean, sometimes it's a bit of both, really, Sometimes it's RNG where you have like an 80% chance to win, and you can kind of tell watching the battle where like you missed 4 times or your guy just didn't land the affliction. And you can kind of tell when you were probably supposed to win, but the RNG just kept you from getting there. But yeah, sometimes I mean people do beat me, it's not like I lose all the time. So it's just it's about playing the percentages and trying to win as much as you can, obviously, but consistently winning more than you're losing is gonna help you and get the rating in this new system, because it's just a flat plus 20, minus 20 now. So whoever can consistently just win, probably 60 to 63% is gonna just slowly pull away on the leaderboard.
Hmm. Now, when your rating gets reset, when people in champ, do you all get reset to like a set level, or is it based off of just minus what your score was at the end of the last season? So, or if you're like the top 10, you're not going to get reset flat with everybody in champ. You're going to still have that advantage going into the next season over them.
It's only happened what, once or twice, I think,
I guess
but
once since the new
yeah.
thing, but
I think
yeah,
we all got set back to 3850 though.
yeah.
That's
I
for
was just curious about
it's
that. I
so
didn't know.
yeah, so it's the same as the other leagues. So if you finish in champ 1, you fall back to the bottom of champ 3.
Mm.
If you finish
Yeah.
champ 2, champ 3, you go back to 2 levels. So it's the same for you, Hep, right? Like if you finish in in Diamond 2, you'll start the new season in Gold 2 or Gold 1.
I think so.
Yeah,
I didn't really
it's the
look
same.
at what my rating was when it reset this last season, so I'll have to check that out this season.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that the back to your comments about the RNG and just being crushed by a clearly better team. We've talked about this a couple of times, and most recently with Dave and Azurcon last week, in reference to Grim Bardon. It's really forced the meta to be scattershot. Uh, who lands that affliction with the coastal nymph first, or who gets the better shots with the chaos dragon, or who lands the poison from the acid shooter. Those three cards specifically, each one is kind of built for a different mana cap, and oftentimes it comes down to which scatter shot is more effective. I was super excited for Kai to come into play. I think she's I still haven't played her to the degree that I think I should be playing her, but I feel like she's a good step in the right direction to pushing the meta back towards a controlled approach and therefore skill. Venka, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on Venka. I feel like Venka is really going to shift things back to you need control to win matches. What's your take on, firstly, Grim Bardon and the current scattershot meta, and then the recent airdrop and the upcoming airdrop pushing things back towards the controlled approach?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. It's like a lot of these matches can just come down to whoever sticks those key poisons or afflictions. And, it is frustrating because a lot of the time you want room to be able to outplay your opponent, just make the best team for the rule set. And a lot of the time, yeah, it just comes down to sticking the right scatter shots in the right spots. But it's changed a bit with Rage. Rage has even kind of made it just a little more like heavy magic spam. A lot of it is like either bringing double healers with magic spam, or even the Magi of Chaos to get another oppress in there. And so there are, like, I don't know, it's not all scatter shots, but yeah. And then as far as Kai goes, I think I haven't been able to use her a ton yet, but there are instances in like unarmored, or like the rule sets that kind of allow more aggression, where you can just like burst the Smith down now, like in an ambush phase, or you know with like double strikers, your coastal sentries or your carnage titans even. And I think Venka will pretty much be the end of like full Smith strategies, like as we see them now. I think you'll be able to play like a different front tank, perhaps with force field, and then still have like your Rage Smith and like another weapons trained card further back.
With Venka, is it going to be people are no longer playing Grim Bardon Smith, or is it going to be people are playing Grim Bardon Smith and Venka? Like what's the guessing game going to be, right? If you're going to expect a force field or not. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, that's interesting to say. You like think people will go. So is it now you'll think people are going to be, you have to play Venka every time because you have to, just in case someone plays a Grim Bardon Smith in the tank spot, you got to be able to take it out, or.
Yeah, so it's going to become a bit rock, paper, scissors, right? And I'm not like a huge fan of that from a game design perspective, because it's like, well, if Venka just counters the Smith that badly, you can't play the Smith anymore. But then people stop playing the Smith, so then people stop playing Venka. And then we go full circle where now you play Smith again. And
Right.
so we'll see, but it is a very strong counter just looking at the stats and like what it does. So it'll be interesting to see if like it really does just is a Smith killer, because she's doesn't have a ton of health. So like, if we're still using scatter shots, like a hit from Chaos Dragon, whatever, could take her out pretty quick, and then maybe she's not that big of a threat. But I think having Smith in the front as your main tank, that'll probably be too risky, where you just lose if they have the Vinka and a strong lineup for it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're going to get more rule sets that can kind of differentiate between the two, because I think, as of now, there's Kai, Venka, and Grim Bardon are all subject to, being excluded from play just based on very different rule sets. I think Grim Bardon still holds a significant advantage because he's a rare, and he's relatively low mana cost. But I don't know if Kai does enough by herself to mitigate Grim Bardon. But so if you get like evens only, that would rule out Venka. You get odds only, that's going to rule out Grim Bardon and Kai. No legendaries obviously means Grim Bardon is more than likely going to make an appearance. And I think the market, we talked about it last week, and Azarcon was calling out that Grim Bardon had fallen quite a bit, but I think the market, as the market usually does, had a little bit of an overreaction, because prices seem to have stabilized a fair bit close to that $5 range, which still puts Grim Bardon out of reach for a lot of folks. It's still a really, really pricey card, in excess of $500 for a max copy.
Was that like 750 though, right? Was that the top is around 750 or more, I feel like?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, right now a max copy is going for $700, so it's still close to that.
Yeah, I mean,
it was up there.
Yeah. I remember when I was looking, because I think I remember when the ranked changes, I was like, let me look at it. And I was like, oh no, I think it was like over 750 maybe. And I'm like, oh, yep, just never, that's never happening. And then, yeah, I think when we were talking with Azarcron about it and Dave, I looked and I think it had dropped to around like 450. So yeah, it stabilized, going back up a little bit, but it's still down from where it was.
Yeah. And to clarify that, there's only 15, 16 BCX below $6. So once you clear out that, what is that, a level 3 and then two spare BCX, you're right back above that $6 mark. And yeah, right, pretty much $699 for a max copy. That's just craziness, man. If I hadn't employed the approach of snagging Grim Bardon on day one, and
what was it on day one?
I didn't pay more than $1.89 per BCX, and that was the top end. So if I had not done that, there's no way that I would have Grim Bardon on my squad.
I know I sold a couple of them for like 250 that I wish I still had.
Yeah. All right. Well, so speaking about RNG, I think that's a nice segue into your RNG reduction proposal idea. And we had pitched this, kudos to you, Hep. I think it was with Call Me Tim that you pitched the idea. It might have been with Yaba.
It was with Yaba. Yeah. It was maybe both, but I definitely pitched it to Yaba. Yeah,
so the idea being, and Mondroid, I'll hand it over to you in just a second to kind of expand on it. But the idea being, we'll use Dr. Blight as an example. If you're striking enemies, if you're hitting enemies, and you're not sticking an affliction or a poison, then with each subsequent strike, you're getting closer to a fully guaranteed application of either affliction and or poison. So for example, just to kind of lay it out a little bit more clearly, if in round one you hit the opposing enemy, neither affliction or a poison stick, in round two, instead of being a 50% chance, it would move to maybe a 60% chance. And obviously by round 5 it would be 100% if you still hadn't stuck either one. I think that was the proposal that you had kind of made, Hep. Mondroid, I think you suggested something a little bit more ramped up. Yeah, I'll turn it over to you to kind of elaborate what your idea was, Mondroid.
Yeah, so for like those proc-based abilities, right, with the 50% chance to happen or not, I was thinking more like, if you miss the poison or affliction first round, right, but you are hitting the target and you hit again, it would just be an automatic proc. Because when you're playing the game, like if you miss two, three, maybe four afflictions, like and then they have healers, right? It's pretty devastating. Like you're probably not gonna win versus hitting that affliction the first shot and then being able to nullify their strategy or whatever, right? Because that's the whole purpose. That's the reason you would bring an affliction. So that's kind of where I was thinking with it. Obviously, we can work on the numbers or how it actually scales up or whatever if it seems too powerful then or too reliable, heaven forbid.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. So then would you think if you do hit it, then the next time, well, I guess next time you wouldn't. Well, no, because it still comes into play, right? If there's like a cleanse or something like that, the next time it wouldn't, and then it would reset back to being, a coin flip again, or how do you kind of see that progression?
Yeah, I see it resetting back to the coin flip where then you would have the 50-50 chance again and it would start the process over. So if you didn't hit it that new time, right, then it would be back to 100% the next time. But, it could be 25% more chance or whatever, I think it'd be nice to be able to test stuff like that, and try it out, see how it feels.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just the increasingly weighted dice roll on that affliction or poison sticking. Um, what would be the side effects of that? Off the cuff, things like slip spawn in the back, wave brood in the back, any taunt you place in the back is at an immediate disadvantage because you can't cleanse in the back line. Can you guys kind of forecast any other potential side effects? That obviously points to things like Coral Lurker in the front, or maybe we start seeing metas where Wave Brood or Slip Spawn get played in the front, which seldom happens. But yeah, what's your kind of forecast of what would that do to the meta?
Well, in my opinion, like taunts are supposed to be like speed bumps, right? They slow you down from getting to like the guys you actually want to kill. And so I don't really see anything wrong with like the taunts having, say, a limited lifespan. Like, the affliction's coming, but it's done its job. It took 15 hit points worth of damage, right? I mean, it goes down or whatever. And, you know, I think that would be fine, really. But yeah, it's interesting to think about different what would it all mean, for the game.
Yeah, I agree too, especially with the taunts, playing taunts in the back row. They should be, like you said, there should be speed bumps, not, you know,
The
insurmountable
whole
objects,
game.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
how many
Not they
times,
the
like,
10 rounds in, he's still back there getting triaged, right?
yeah, I mean, that's like why, like, sometimes like playing your Coral Lurker in the back spot is a huge advantage. I lose that all the time where you're just like, man, I just need to get one affliction, but my odds of hitting this thing are only, 15%, 20% going into each attack. And then, when I do hit, the odds of, getting the affliction or the poison that you need to try to bring it down, it just seems like it's so, yeah, like you said, we're like when it lands in a reasonable amount of time, it's fine, but then there's so many times where it's just seems like you're never going to land the attack, or it's never going to stick. And yeah, that's the whole match. Yeah, the whole match. I mean, I think having um the more predictability in the game would be better, right? Like any disadvantage, like, that's not like you're saying, like, what would be the drawbacks. I don't really necessarily see that as a drawback, right? A taunt card played in the back row has, less power than it does now. I I don't see that as like a disadvantage to the game. I see that as an advantage because I think it brings greater balance to it as opposed to, you know, you're just getting hosed so often. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that's a positive thing. I think yeah, the taunts, I think, are taunts or, force cards into being taunts with Lily, like, right? Like, I think that's what's caused a lot of the repetitiveness in the game, because, taunts were great and we were excited to have more than one and excited to spread them out over different cards and things like that. And they are like really useful in some cases, but yeah, I think it's turned into like sometimes too much. So
I kind of knew Lily was going to be a problem for that reason. Like when Kitty was still around, right? Kitty was still pretty dominant, but I'm looking at Lily, just the ability to give any card taunt essentially, right? And that's where like something like Grim Bardon Smith just becomes a huge nuisance because it has everything else but the taunt to force you to attack it. So playing it with Lily, that combo is just, just ridiculous.
so with all the rule sets too, like with equal opportunity rule sets or like sneak rule sets. Now in sneak rule sets, sometimes I feel like I don't want to play Lily because I want to spread out the damage to the front and the back. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, like with equal opportunity rule set, I'm almost always playing Lily or a taunt card somewhere. And usually I'm going with Lily, right? Because I want to be able to line up the cards I want them to go after, as opposed to, having them just go after um the cards with the most damage or the cards with the least health. So yeah, it seems like, yeah, it's just it's too predictable what you need to play in certain rule sets.
I
I'd like
wonder
to see us get
if
away from
this just popped in my head, and I don't know if I've ever heard this suggested. Against Lily, it feels like something like Death Blow, and I'm curious to know, when is the last time you guys ever played a card specifically for Death Blow? I can answer that. Never.
I
Yeah,
did.
pretty much. I mean, every now and then it might come up, but it's always on accident. It's like, whoa, why'd I just hit that guy for 8? Oh, he's the last card.
Right. And I
We'll
think that
activate.
I think it's disappeared with Llama, right? Because if you had 14 mana, it was pretty much a Llama mercenary play, hands down. You can't beat it. With the exception being some death blow cards. Hep, you were gonna say something.
Yes. Yeah, so I had this happen to me a few days ago where it was a going the distance rule set. Again, I'll say that's the worst name of any of the rule sets, and we should change it. But yeah, the range attack only rule set, and it was a very low mana rule set, and I forget the exact cards. But I had like my strategy was either should I play the gargoyle with something else behind it, or should I play one card? Maybe it was like the Queen of Crows I was thinking, or Wave Brood, or maybe Wave Brood wasn't available. Um, and so I was thinking it's either with the mana cap I had, it was either play one card or play that gargoyle and another card. And I initially went to play the one card, and I said, "Oh crap! If someone plays the gargoyle and another card in the back, they'll get the death blow, and I'll just be immediately knocked out." I switched it to the gargoyle, and the other person didn't think through that, and they played the one card, and I just took it down. So
Wow.
yeah, that was the one. But that's like that has happened to me once in forever, right?
Okay.
Like for
Okay. Okay.
forever. Yeah.
So
It's not like that happens often. That's happened one time in the past, 6 months or year even maybe, where I
so
consciously made that decision.
if I had asked this a week prior, the answer would be nil across the board.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You
But we'll
got the
be
112 mana, Rise of the Commons, Odd Ones
yeah,
Out rule set,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Archery
That's
only.
right. That's probably what it was. It probably was something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so my point is, Deathblow is one of those abilities that just gets swept under the rug. And outside of this very recent occurrence from Hep, kudos to that big thinking man. Way to think through that one and take advantage.
Thanks for
But
bringing it up. And now I get to seem really smart on the podcast. Thank you.
I feel like Deathblow should apply to counter Lily, because it
Like because all the cards are camoed, so it
exactly, yes.
activates Death Blow. You only see one guy.
Well, that's
Correct,
good.
because in my eyes, if I'm fielding Death Blow, the only person that I can see on the other team as being alive is Grim Bardon, and that would give great additional value to an ability that for all intents and purposes, sucks. And it just
gone the way of the dodo.
Yeah,
as
the
a
dodo.
quote,
Dodo
James
making
Boyd.
man, we're bringing it back. That's 2 appearances in 2 weeks. Yeah, what do you guys think about giving value to something like Deathblow for Lily, and should that be applicable?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought about it before, but it's interesting, like how much are we gonna do of like, balance wise versus just like, because they always want to like nerf something or make a or not make a counter for something instead of nerfing it. So like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It'd
I
be kind
get
of hard to see the change going into effect, but I don't see why it couldn't.
well, we saw Cripple get a buff. Right, you couldn't before Cripple was cleansable, and now it's not. Um, and Cripple, I think Cripple used to apply on. Oh no, it was Life Leech that used to apply on Blast. Uh, which I still disagree with. I think that's such a cool feature of Life Leech. Um, but yeah, I would love to see these abilities that are pretty much extinct kind of get some life breathed back into them. And I guess that's something that can be thought about after Venka comes out. And if Grim Bardon is still just as much of a problem post Venka, then maybe it's worth considering. But I'm all for the idea of breathing new life back into old abilities that just completely flopped. Because I don't think Deathblow has ever really been super relevant, with the very rare exception of like Llama Cube or Llama Mercenary, which everybody who's listened to this knows my feelings about the cube. Worst card in the game.
Yeah,
So how would you feel about recharge activating turn 1, recharge turn 2?
That would be brilliant. I feel like that would bring a lot more value to because the only recharge card that I've ever played consistently was Uriel, and it was never for his attack ability. It was for the self heal. It was for the redemption. It was for the big armor. It was never. It's nice to have that big boy swinging every other round for what is it, 9 damage, 12 damage. But outside of Uriel, maybe the what is it, the rewards card, camouflage, neutral,
Gobson
ranged,
Bomber.
Gobson Bomber. He makes it into my lineup every once in a while.
Yeah,
But yeah, Uriel was who are the other recharge? The Insidious Warlock, never play. The Zyvax Vool, even in ranged only, I never play. And then
I had to play that once in a while, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Maybe when
like,
you have to, right?
Sometimes it is good too, because it's got that close range ability. In a range, yeah. I mean, if I have the mana in a going the distance, again, worst name for rule set ever, I'll play him somewhere near the back sometimes, because sometimes that gives him he really can come through for you with like a big amount of damage at the end. So I have done that and been successful. Probably not. Yeah, if you have the mana. Yeah, I mean, down here, yeah. I mean, what are these cards? Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Okay, yeah, I take that back. I play that card a lot.
In Magic only, it's one of the ways to actually do damage when there's like 2 silences and void armor with Immortalis.
Right.
That's a great call.
But that's because of Immortalis, right? That's like, yeah.
He's also got a great kit, right? Like the Rust, the Giant Killer. If you're expecting a Korra, that guy just wipes the table. Or an Archimus. It's it's lights out with the Swedish Shaman. Okay, that's a fair call.
Yeah, that's like the only one really. But yeah, I just think, letting them go into the battle round 1 with their big attack ready, would help a bit. And, because like who's going to go into a battle and be like, all right, hold on, guys, I got to charge up now.
Yeah, what are you doing beforehand? What are you doing before the battle? Get ready, man.
Yeah, I feel like it was a bit of a mistake because the recharge happens round one. So if, I would even be okay with the improvement of, if I play a Kane, for example, and I have the Swedish Shaman on my team, if I give Swedish Shaman ambush, and I don't know the answer to this, does the Swedish Shaman then complete the recharge in ambush round and fire round one?
Yeah.
That does happen?
I'm
Yeah,
pretty
I
sure. I
believe
thought that was
so.
one of the big advantages of a cane was that you could do that now. I think I've
Mondroid, do you
tried it and
know?
it's worked. I haven't done it recently, but
I haven't really tried it, but I believe that's how it works. I know on tests, like when we were testing Rebellion, she used to let them just ambush attack right off the bat in the ambush phase, and that was pretty cool. But then they changed it to just, I'm pretty sure they changed it to just they're ready round one.
Well, something to be tested after. It feels like that should be what happens. The recharge attack firing in round one might be a little bit
that's
over the
gnarly.
board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is gnarly. Um, yeah, giant killer. Yeah, Swedish shaman. That's a great call out. That is one card that I use pretty often. He's also got a great kit. The rust is fantastic. Giant killer is what separates him from the rest. But Mondroid, so with the, let's circle back to the RNG proposal stuff. So you had also put forth the idea of pulling down evasiveness. So reducing the effectiveness of things like dodge, blind, flying. I think if that happens, I think it's also worth considering and this Hep, I'm surprised you haven't raised this point. How on earth does a melee monster that doesn't have flying attack a flying monster? Just from a pure practical perspective, you're swinging your sword in the air and hopefully this guy swoops close enough to where I can clip its wing or what.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like just from a practical perspective, the game could benefit greatly from, like your point, Mondroid, reducing overall effectiveness of those evasive abilities, blind, dodge, flight, uh, reducing the differential applied, or reducing the percentage uh, based off of speed differential that is applied to increase the chance of a miss. Um, I mean, all of these things that you're arguing for, Mondroid, go exactly to the point of what we were making earlier, where providing control as and therefore skill as the ultimate determining factor in what separates the winners from the losers. Would you mind expanding on your thought process for um reducing the evasiveness?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we've all had the battle where a chaos agent just dodges 5 or 6 times and backfires your whole team, right? And you just get destroyed.
Mondred, have
And
you been talking to Tails?
man, I think it happens to everybody, man.
Maybe Tails is just the most vocal about it.
Yeah. So like, the idea would just be to drop those 25% down to like 15, and then the blind would go from 15 down to 10. And because right now, if you just have flying or evasion plus blind, that's 40% with just one of those things. If you have like astral entity with blind and then a flying guy, it's pretty absurd. So I think just for the sake of like, yeah, making the game a little less luck based and more skill based, I think it could be a pretty good change.
Hep, what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had some matches. I used to have to do gold foil brawls, and my big play was just get my Dispa and the Riftwing out and try to get some martyrs around the Riftwing and buff its speed, and then just annihilate people with misses, and that was great. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, it is super annoying, and Yeah, I feel like especially the way things stack, like the way you have things stack, it creates some, the numbers are just too high, right? With the speed, the flying, dodge,
Yeah, because I mean,
blind.
it could be
Yeah.
the same speed monster, and you still have a 40% chance to miss it with flying and blind, right?
Yeah. 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 And so yeah, those things don't even take the speed. So that's the things once you get up to like a 3 or 4 speed differential, that's just almost, there either needs to be a
60,
cap on it or
70%.
something. Yeah, there
Yeah.
needs to be some sort of, either reduce everything or definitely make some sort of cap, right? Or make it so that if you want to keep them at the the certain percentages are, then now make it so that when they stack, it makes it less, right? Or you can only add, 5, like you said, 5 or 10% on if something's stacking, as opposed to just adding on the full 15%. So, yeah, I think it's the RNG has always been a frustration. I think it's been magnified now because before it was a frustrating nuisance that could certainly win or lose you some matches, but I think when you have to rely on it to win, right? Like that's the problem, right? If you have to rely on randomness to win, it feels like things are more out of your control, right? You have like less of a choice in what you're playing and how the cards you're actually playing are. Like I said this when Yasik first came out, like I have no interest in this card whatsoever. I do not want to play teams where I have to leave everything up to just random chance. And maybe I have control issues, but that's the way it is. And I'm playing a game where I want to, that's the strategy of the game, is you put cards in a certain order and line up and put them in situations where they're going to perform a certain way that you want them to, and you're going to achieve a result, right? Instead of just whatever, I'm just going to throw it out there and whatever happens, happens. And I think we've moved way too far into that territory. That right. So like, I feel like, yeah, we want to change all these things. And I think all these things would be great changes anyway, but it's still having to rely on the, even if you make it less random, still having to rely on the randomness so much is probably what's really the most frustrating part.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Rogue Patton, right? Shout out to Rogue. When he
What's up,
first
bro?
got to champion, he was like amazed at how much more RNG was in the game, because just everything has blind or evasion, flying. It's just kind of everywhere, And there's more swiftness, there's more slow. And so like the speed differentials in the speed play is just, it's kind of just a whole different beast once you get up to champion and everything has all those abilities.
I mean, that's exactly where Kitty was most valuable, right?
Yeah,
That
I mean
True
it
Strike just negated everything.
definitely took the RNG out for one side.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, it's certainly an interesting thought experiment. We'll have to get Call Me Tim back on at some point, Hep, and stake our claim. Or Mondroid, are you planning on putting together a proposal around this sort of thing?
Um, I haven't really thought about like actually doing it, but it's like if there was enough feedback, enough people wanted it, like, we could definitely try to make something happen with it.
I mean, I think Hep, if Hep is willing to relinquish his beloved Riftwing in the name of more control, I think we've got a good case to make for
Yeah.
bringing skill to the forefront of what dictates victories. Um, so if it sounds like Hep has been won over, so I'd say you got a pretty good chance there, Mondroid. I think this thing could get some legs.
All right.
Yeah, I'd be on board. I mean, I don't know. Is this one of those things where this is something that Dow can ask the team to do? Is this something that falls under the team's kind of purview? I mean, it's kind of solely game mechanics, right? So I think it would be something where it would have to be more of a suggestion or a request that they would do it, as opposed to something that they would be bound to do.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's why I was
agreed.
kind of still figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's more of a pursuit of getting Call Me Tim back on and trying to persuade old Bob to put some consideration into this thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we touched on it a little bit last week with Dave and Azurcon. Mondroid, your new idea for, I think you and I went back and forth about it a couple times. I told you I was going to shout it out and jokingly told you that I was going to give credit to Parallel for the idea. Um, but the general idea of allowing ghost cards for all players and therefore your earnings are qualified and earned based upon your ownership in the game and ownership of cards that are being played. I don't think that I did that argument justice. To be fair, it was almost midnight. We were almost 3 hours deep on the podcast, and I didn't have the gusto to sustain that argument beyond where I did. So I want to give you the opportunity, Mondroid, to kind of, elaborate, pitch a little bit further and you know, clean up my mess from last week.
Yeah, so the idea would be like once you buy the spell book, that you just get a max ghost card deck for modern ranked play only. It would have, I'm not sure if it should have like all the promos and rewards and everything too, or maybe just the core set for CL and Rebellion. But either way, it'd be something that new players could come to the game, right? And just immediately they have their max deck, they can play the cards, they can go as far as they want to. There's they don't even need to buy crypto, they don't need to do nothing else other than just get the spell book. And I think it would be really good in that sense for people to come try the game. A lot of games now are basically just free to play. They get you in the door, they let you experience the product, and they know if you like it, then you'll put more money into it most likely. So right now, I just think it's really difficult to get people into our game. There's just a whole bunch of uh, barricades, basically, like keeping people from making it easy. And one of the ways to make it easier would just be like, hey, you bought the spell book, now go play.
Yeah, not to mention the giant paywall that exists from going from or even sampling what does gameplay look like from novice to champ. It's a completely different ball game. So I'm completely on board and to kind of provide some more value around this. I use Aftersound has been pretty transparent around his experience with Parallel. And this is precisely what encouraged him to invest in the game. Was he was able to play, he was able to understand the mechanics at the higher levels, and he felt like it was absolutely worth his investment of both time and finances to invest in a starter deck. I think that's what it's called over on the parallel side of things, and therefore get him earnings. So I think being able to have a real taste of what does gameplay look like at any given level, and I think we have what was leading into that conversation was the reintroduction of leagues, and my Azurcon posed the issue of, okay, well, you can't have both. And my idea was the counter was, it's respect the max cards are available to your respective league again, like it was previously. And Mondroid, I think that's something you and I had talked about that you seem to agree with. Is that right?
Well, there'd be a couple ways to do it, right? So originally I was just thinking we would, you just have the max deck, it's all max level cards, you're in bronze, silver, whatever rating, and you're just going, right? But you could also set it up like that where it's let's say you wanted to play bronze or silver or whatever, and you get a max silver deck then. But I'm not really sure really what would be best, but personally, I kind of like just having everybody get max cards so they can just be part of, because like when you come into play right now, right, what happens? You face a max deck by the time you're in like silver or gold, right? And so part of just leveling that playing field I feel is really important, where it's just, we're all working with the same hand for the most part.
Yeah,
Yep.
my initial thought was that it eliminated a lot of the variability that's in the game that helps to keep the game interesting. I think that, building a deck, deciding what cards to buy, deciding, what, the right places to spend your money. And at least for me, who isn't up in the top of champion, like knowing that I'm not going to be going up against someone who has every card each time creates a bit of a, um, creates a bit of like variability in the game. Whereas, and I guess Azarkron described it as the game having more depth that way, and I really like that description. Whereas, if everybody has all the cards, um, I just feel like that kind of then becomes not, you kind of just figure out what the best cards are to play, and it's not necessarily, well, what are my best cards that I can play in this rule set. And maybe there isn't as much incentive to kind of grow your deck when you get to a place where, you have some cards, but you don't really think you need all of them. If, everybody, we all have cards that, we think are really great, but we maybe use them once out of every 100 matches. And when we have them, they're great. But, like I always kind of refer to it as, cards you need to have to play on a daily basis, and those cards that are nice to have, once a month. So I was kind of like a little reserved by it, thinking about it a little bit more, and kind of what you said, where if we don't have like the promo cards, or if they're just the base sets, if it's a more limited amount of cards, then I think that's a good way to kind of keep some of that depth around. And if it was something too where it's like, all right, maybe you buy the spell book, you get it for a certain amount of time, and then if you want to keep those cards, you can pay a certain amount to have those ghost cards, and maybe that money goes to the team, right? Or so it's something that have reoccurring revenue for the team. Maybe buy the spell book, you get the max level cards for a couple seasons, and then if you wanted to have the ghost cards at bronze level, it's going to be X amount a month. If you want to have them at silver level, it's going to be X amount a month. You want to have them gold level, it's going to be this, and have it escalate. Again, we talked about this with Dave, where it's kind of weird that this game has, no way, no tiers. There's no way to spend money to get more things when you initially purchase something. So I think that kind of goes to solving that issue as well. And I think that's something that could be interesting and something we could look into. It's, I remember when, like, I'm not sure, it probably wasn't even that long ago, but I know the big issue before when we had the ghost cards, but then they did the reduction. Well, if you're playing ghost cards, you're not going to earn as much. I think there was still some issues. Maybe people thought with big bot farms just owning a few cards and then just trying to eke out um, whatever little bit they could get, only owning a few cards, and maybe that would something that became an issue again. So I mean, I don't know from that angle. I don't think I had as much knowledge about how big of an issue that was to know if that's something that we're saying, hey, no, we really need to make sure that that's something that doesn't like rear its head again. So yeah, I mean, but I think it's definitely an interesting way to explore it, and to get more people involved and give people a taste of those, at least even a taste of the higher level, to give them something they maybe want to aspire to.
Yeah, and so like your earning potential will be based off of your owned cards. So there's still reason to buy cards. There's still reason to like, hey, I'm playing this guy all the time as a ghost card. Maybe I should pick that real copy up, right? And there would be penalties for like if say you have silver level cards, but you can play the max deck, but your earnings would be reduced by whatever percentage was determined to be right for the situation, like maybe a 75% penalty for playing a silver level or owning a silver level card.
Mm. Yeah, something that I think Parallel does is, it's a little bit of a different use case, because Parallel looks at your percentage owned of your full deck. Like you enter, my understanding, I haven't been able to play it. So if this happens across anybody involved in the Parallel development team, I've tried, but the game still isn't available for Mac users, unfortunately. But my understanding is your earning potential is reduced exponentially versus incrementally, based off of the cards that you own in your deck. So maybe that would be the great deterrent, an equalizer for any concerns around exactly the situation that you just called out, Hep, where instead of you field 6 cards, instead of losing, what is it, 15% per card, it's exponential. If you play one less, maybe it's 40% of your earnings off the table. If you play two own card, or you play 2 ghost cards, maybe it's 60%. So something like that, where it really encourages and drives the behavior to buy the respective cards. But I really like the idea that maybe you only get the ghost cards for, I don't know, 60 days. I feel like the game is on the surface, it's a really simple game. But once you start diving in, it's very nuanced, and there's a good fair bit of skill involved, and you don't really start to realize that until you're playing with all of these other abilities that you're running up against. So I feel like maybe that window is 60 days, and after that, I think this is where the DAO's got so many packs of cards, man. I feel like the DAO should be putting together max decks made available for that one-click rental, and maybe that's where you start to get suggestions of, okay, your ghost deck is expiring in X number of days. We've got the option for a max champ deck available for, I don't know, 10,000 DEC for a season or whatever that is. So I feel like there is some value there, and to your point of deck depth and having access to all the cards, and to Azracon's point as well, maybe it is just the core cards. So anything soulbound is completely off the table. Once we get unlocked soulbound cards, you can obviously supplement your deck with soulbound rentals. I'm assuming there's going to be some folks who take the route of unlocking cards purely for the rental market, because I expect it to be a lucrative opportunity for cards like Mastermind and Iziar. There's certainly going to be demand for those cards once they become unlockable, but reserving that sort of stuff and excluding that sort of stuff from ghost card availability, there's only one solution, and that solution is to play the bloody game, right? And it's your ticket to getting those cards is only accessible through playing the game.
Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Sense.
I wonder too if it makes sense to have it so there's one, let's say, how about this idea too? What if there's, of the modern set, what if only one of the sets are available to play? And let's say maybe you have one of the sets that are not in modern available to play. I don't know if that's too limiting. Mondroid, do you think that would be too limiting and put people, behind? I mean, because I think you could like right now, you could field a very competitive team with a full Chaos Legion set, right? And I mean, I don't know if I've ever been up against a full sort of set that's only seen Rebellion cards. But I mean, assumably you could, and yeah, and I mean that could encourage people to like check out Wild too and check out some of the older cards. And I don't know, they could just kind of be where you only have one set available. Maybe it's the older set, maybe it's the newer set to maybe encourage people to buy the newer cards, and the older cards you can only get for if you rent them or buy them, which would drive maybe more value to them, which helps kind of alleviate the issue with, well, this set's going to be going out of modern soon, and the price would drop. So yeah, I think there's stuff that you could do. I mean, and also, is there a reason just not to try this stuff? I don't know how much time it would take to implement this stuff, but I just don't see a lot of downside maybe to trying it out and seeing. I wish we could see. We probably don't have the manpower for this, right? But let's say we're going to implement this on, 1,000, the next 1,000 people who sign up, we can say, hey, here's an option. Instead of paying $10 for a spell book, you pay 20, and we're going to give you, this is what you're going to get for, a couple months, right? And do it for 1,000 people and see what the retention rate is, as opposed to what the retention rate normally is, right? And that way you could say to the community, right? Because that's the thing, is the community, I feel like everything we do, sorry, I'm going a bit of a tirade here, but everything we do has to be so set in stone. And I don't know if that's just the nature of the game, but that, everybody gets so upset by any little change because they feel like it's going to be so permanent and so terrible and such a disaster. Like, it'd be nice to say, if we can say, hey, we're going to try this out. Let's see how this goes. Because then if you could say, well, look, the retention is this much higher than normal, more people probably get on board with it.
Yeah, it's difficult for our game, right? To just like flip a switch and make something happen, right? Or try something out. Everything's kind of just a slow moving process a lot of the time. And yeah, I don't know. Like going back to what you're saying with like, wild deck being ghost card. It's tough with anything that goes into wild because you just, then it's like legal for bot farms to just kind of try to exploit the situation with it, right? So the reason I was thinking they would stay in modern is that at least bots are against toss there and they can enforce like, anything that would try to exploit the system.
That's a great point. And also, Hep, this goes back to a point that you've made many, many times, in that, the store should always have cards on the shelves available to buy. So with that thought in mind, I feel like Rebellion should be the easy decision, easy choice to make available as ghost cards. And I think maybe not right now, but soulbound cards, the next batch is coming June, July, August, somewhere in the summertime. And all of a sudden we're going to have, I would assume that the next soulbound batch is probably going to be around the same size of Chaos Legion. And even if it's half of that, that's still 100 cards that would be completely inaccessible. And then you tack on Mantaroth, Grim Bardon, Ziriel, the OP summoner that is Waka, Lux Vega. Those cards would be completely inaccessible throughout.
I thought you were going to say
any of
Dallin.
this.
At least you didn't say Dallin.
Dallin, we should be giving Dallin away and to see if we could shift the meta. But yeah, I mean that we in Mondroid, I've heard you make this point time and time again. The soulbound cards are really, really overpowered. Iziar is pretty much a staple when you're playing life, right? Some of the non-attackers now are just over the top. Noah the Just and Idri Fire are just amazing. Will-O-Wisp is an incredible card, and plays so well with other death cards and dragon cards. So yeah, I feel like there's definitely something to this, and I'm gonna push back on Dave's idea that it should be a separate league. I feel like the name of the game for me right now is bringing players into the game that stick. Nothing is going to shift the needle more than having new players enter the game and stick around and see the value. And that's going to do wonders for the card market. It's going to do wonders for Rebellion sales. It would do wonders for SPS demand. We've very loosely crunched the numbers, and if we had another 1,000 people, 500 people that come in with the desire to acquire a max deck, all of a sudden it's a completely different landscape that we're working with. So I'm all for what you suggested, Hep, of just rolling this out to the next 1,000 spell books. That's like standard procedure for A/B testing. There's no better way to draw data other than rolling out real life samples. And I don't feel like there's much to lose at this point. I'm willing to give it a solid try and see what's what on the other side. And given that all things, some folks are claiming we're in the thick of a raging bull market right now. Some folks are saying maybe that's coming a little bit later, but I don't hear anybody saying that we're still in the depths of the bear. So things are happening. People are pulling profits from other cryptos across the space, and we should 100% be looking for giving reasons to come try Splinterlands. And I feel like this is a very potent solution, potential solution for, making our argument. Why should you come to Splinterlands? Well, you get to try out the game at its full capacity and full potential. And um, yeah, why not? Why shouldn't you come try Splinterlands?
Yeah, and one of the nice things about it is, say they come to play and they never buy an SPS, they never buy any cards, there's still match liquidity. We need match liquidity because right now we're talking about, running non-earning bots to give people games. So, there's to me, I just don't see a lot of downside with it, where it's just, if we had 1,000 people come in and just play because it's fun, like Web 2 style, like that would be good for our ecosystem too. But, a lot of people would probably take that next step and start looking into the crypto side of it. And I think the other thing you could do with this is you could make like a Web 2 version of the game for like the App Store where there's no earnings, right? There's no crypto. It's just Splinterlands the game. You get a max ghost card deck and you can play it on your phone, mobile, whatever, cool. And then you start seeing like what you could have earned, like, if you did own cards, if you did have staked SPS, you could transition us to the crypto side and go, oh, maybe I'll start playing over there now. And it'd be very similar to what they were already doing because they have a max ghost card deck to play with. They've experienced the game. It's just the same thing, but without the crypto, right? So I think it'd make it easier to transition people over to our Web3 side of it.
What do you think about the argument that maybe it should be then like a different game mode? And that would kind of make more sense too with the app and with it being separate and sort of in the app store and available. Do you think it could work out as now essentially you don't get the match liquidity advantage from it. But yeah, what if it was a separate game mode and even that you maybe even had, I mean, maybe you could still have ECR in it, but maybe you could have more or something like that where you could just play it more, but not earn.
So I think Azarcon kind of points out, rightly so, that we just don't have any time to develop another game mode or anything, to make that work. I think it'd be much easier to just kind of, because we have ghost cards as they are now, right? You can play, what is it, commons and rares of Chaos Legion and Rebellion, right? So I think it wouldn't be too hard to just turn that on for every card. And so then you kind of skip out on the whole, we need to develop something. And it's easier to just get it going as it is that way.
Mm. Yeah, I think the only development that would probably be required would be reworking the rewards that are applied. But that said, I would be 100% willing to move forward with the A/B test of, we're going to roll it with the next 1,000 spellbooks, and then if it's worth, if we see I can't even venture to guess what our retention rate is now, but it's probably abysmal. So if we see a big spike in retention as a result of this, then it's worth, obviously investing in the necessary development time to adjust the reward structure for playing rewards. And in the meantime, I would happily part ways with, the subsequent SPS inflation and potential for extractors for the next 1,000 spellbooks anyways. Just in the for the sake of running the experiment. And at least we would know, and then we can move on and propose something else. But yeah, I think there's a lot of value to this idea, Mondroid, and I'd love to see this. I feel like this sort of thing, again, this goes back to your earlier question, Hep. Is this within the purview of the DAO? Probably not. The SPS distribution would be,
right?
But
I mean, So here's the thing the DAO could do, right? The DAO has all, like you pointed out, the DAO has a lot of packs. The DAO could, you know, open up those packs, get the max sets, say with the team, hey, we're going to delegate these cards to people. See if the team could do away where the person agrees to then, or if the team could do it, find a way to, I don't know if the team could do this. Actually, I don't know. You probably have to, you have to have the keys to do it.
Well,
But
I mean,
I'm saying to have like the SPS, like kind of the reward sharing or whatever, the SPS go back to the DAO or some of it go back to the DAO. But like the DAO could say we're going to delegate cards, a max deck of cards to the next 1,000 people who sign up, and we're going to see, for a season or two and see if that gets them to stick around. I forget what I know they talked about, like, what was it? The retention rate, something where it's like you get someone to stick with the game for a week or 8 or 9 days. Like the tension rate is like significantly higher than most people who will leave after just a couple days. So people think they're getting something for free for a certain amount of time. They're more likely to stick with it longer, and maybe that means they stick around later. So I mean, there's a way the DAO could do it, right? It's probably not as clean or as simple as if the team could implement it, but the DAO could do it in a way.
I mean, that would still require the development of, how do you navigate and negotiate SPS rewards for those cards, because they wouldn't be ghost cards at that point, right? That would
Right.
be
That's the thing.
right.
They would just get, or the person would just get to keep the SPS. And we just say, hey, how does this, if we give people a max set and let them play and for a season, how many of those people stick around, and then how much money do they spend?
Well, I mean,
Oh.
I can see the counter argument of, well, I'm going to go sign up for 100 additional spell books right now, and those cards are all going to be, earning for me. Yeah. So
Can you earn like, okay, so how much money can you earn with a max deck in a season?
well,
SPS
I'm gonna
rewards.
default to Mondroid for that one.
Yeah.
What are your earnings, Mondroid?
Well, how much SPS are these people gonna have staked?
Right. Well, so there you go. That's the thing, right? That to be able to get the rewards, they would have to have staked SPS, right? So you imagine they're starting in novice and bronze, right? So I'm seeing 5 to 7 SPS in gold. Let's say they're probably not going to be getting to gold, right? So let's say you're going to do 25 matches a day times 15. So that's basically around 375 matches in a season. And let's say we times that by, what do we think people are? Let's say they maybe get to silver in a season. So maybe it's like 4 is a pretty high number. So 1,500 SPS. And then we'll times that by 0.02. And okay, that could be, so if they win every match and they have enough SPS staked, you could win $30 in SPS a season that's currently at. But that's saying you win every match, right? If you win half your matches,
$15.
you're maybe down to 15, right? So, and then you still have to have the SPS staked. So you start looking at it, and maybe the numbers start to come out on top. Maybe if the team says, all right, we're gonna give the DAO, half the value of that spell book. Or maybe you say, hey, if you want to sign up for $20 a spell book, again, we're talking about the tier system, right? Let's say we want a $30 spell book. All right. Half goes to the team, half goes to the DAO. You get a max level deck. Are people interested in that instead of a $10 spell book? And you get to have it for a season. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, it's one of those things that's just hard to know without actually trying it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think back to what we were saying last week, man. I feel like the number one goal for us should be initiating the conversation. I think there is a significant chunk of meat on the bones for this idea that, you know, the team should see and hear and consider everything here. I can't imagine that there would be a whole lot of development time that would be required to adjust the current ghost card usage versus an exponential reward structure for ghost card usage. But obviously I say that with zero context for computer programming, but I feel like it would just be a matter of adjusting some numbers in some code, and then, obviously maybe flipping a switch to make not just rares and commons available, but also epics and legendaries. But all of that said, I feel like the main idea here, the core sentiment is, I want to do whatever we can to invite players, make sure that they have a solid experience, and that they stick around. And I feel like this is a very worthwhile approach to achieving that goal.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of the one-click rental setup that they're going for and all that, but I just think this is simpler, where it's just you sign up, you get your ghost card deck, and you start playing. It's not like anything too difficult, it's not, transferring crypto around a wallet or this or that and staking this or doing that. It's just, you just start playing. And that's really where I kind of look at with it, for the simplicity's sake of just, everybody can start up and just play.
I love it, man. And honestly, I think both of those things should and will exist. The one-click rentals, I'm going to shout out Games on the Block. He's already got one-click rentals available. You can hop in and rent full sets, link your Hive engine wallet or your Hive wallet, and off to the races. He did the one-click rental setup, I believe, for Team PH, but now it's available publicly. So Games on the Block, he's got a YouTube channel, does some cool content. He's a developer. He just dropped a video around kind of in the conversation around Syler, which I think we should probably get to before this episode's over. But definitely worthwhile checking out. Check out his website as well. Okay, so definitely some meat on the bones for that conversation. I'd love to hear, you guys toss your thoughts in the comments. Let's get the conversation going. Okay, so we've alluded a little bit to the next Soulbound batch. Obviously April 2nd is right around the corner. The time of the recording, we are 4 days away from the next big update. Reward store is getting the doors open and grand opening. This is the last season that we're going to be opening chests on end of season. This is the last few days we're going to be getting rewards chests every morning. Mondroid, I'm sure you've got an opinion on reward store versus the current system, and moving to a place where no more SPS is available in chests or for outside of ranked battle rewards. Let's shift the conversation towards that direction of things, man.
Yeah, so I think the reward shop's going to be really cool. There's so much you can do with that, as far as like creating new things for people to go after, right, and spend their glint on. And removing SPS from chests is actually a big deal, because for the longest time now, the chest SPS pool has been shared between Wild and Modern. So bots, in a way, have already been draining more of the share than they should be, right? Because more bots, more accounts are playing in Wild, they're opening more chests. And so just getting rid of that and, splitting the pools fully now between Modern and Wild will be a pretty big boost for Modern, I would imagine.
What a silly oversight, man.
Yeah.
I don't think most people realized. I don't remember who it was that initially called it out, but obviously the ranked battle SPS has been split since the beginnings of Wild versus Modern, and I think everybody just assumed that the same was true for chess also, and it wasn't until much later that I realized that actually the reward chest pool is shared. Yeah, what a silly oversight. So we should see. I think I could be wrong. Maybe you guys can correct me here, but I think Matt said in that most recent Peak Deep post that ranked battle rewards could see an increase of 50%.
That'd be pretty solid. I mean, yeah, they've already seemed like they've gone up this season compared to last season, which I forget. I know he gave a reason for as well that was going to happen, and so they already seem like they're going up. And this, yeah, I didn't realize that the chests were shared at pool as well. So, yeah, that'll be pretty good. Be interesting to see.
What do you guys think about, so it's been a long time since we've had sellable rewards outside of SPS. What do you guys think about the shift towards the reward store and removing anything sellable outside of, we've got some exclusive reward shop titles. I think there's going to be a rare, an epic, and a legendary that will be tradable. But outside of the titles, there's nothing that's going to be tradable from rewards chests. Is that anti-Web3? Is that the correct decision? What is your thoughts on that, Mondroid?
Well, I think it's a decision in a long line of we have to stop the bots from extracting, right? So, I mean, it might be successful in that, but it's also made the game like a lot less enjoyable in the sense that, just nothing really has any monetary value. Like the cards can help you win more, which will, indirectly lead to more SPS. But I really believe we need to do something to make the rewards better and not just like, the SPS being higher, but like going back to some soulbound cards that you are not soulbound, regular reward cards that you can sell or, trade on the market openly. And then, the big one is always rebellion packs and chests. Like everybody's got their opinion on that and if it's gonna, crash the price of the set or whatever. And I think there's ways you could do it that would actually make a lot of sense. And one of them that I came up with was the idea of creating like a exquisite champion chest, right? And let's say this thing's like 5 million glint, right? So like if it's works similar to like our R shares, right? So you get like 130,000 in champ one, right, for winning a battle. It'd take a while to farm this thing up, right? And the let's say this chest has like a 1% chance to drop a legendary reward card. And maybe there's 6 of them, like one for each splinter, right? So there's a 6% chance you get one of them. And I think that would be a really interesting way to kind of go about bringing back some cards that aren't soulbound and possibly even rebellion packs, although I know that's a touchy subject for a lot of people. So, I think it all just kind of comes down to the drop rate and the ability to farm these chests. Because if you remember, a good champion player, you can get like 100 chests a season. You can get 12 to 15 per day. And the Chaos Legion pack drop rate was 3.5%. So, you could pull in like maybe 10 to 12 packs, depending on RNG. But, with this, like a new champion chest or something that was just really expensive, and this is the only chest that could drop that kind of thing, I think it would limit, enough from people's ability to just get a lot of them and really tank the prices on stuff. But at the same time, bring back that glory of, I'll use Tails as an example. His third day playing the game, he pulled a gold foil Axe Master and it was going for like 340 bucks at the time. And then he was hooked, right? He's bought tons of assets. He's a pretty big holder. So I think we just need to do something to make the rewards better. We need a reason for people to want to come in and play Splinterlands. Some of those hyped moments, right? Not just like, oh, I got a soulbound card. Because that's cool, but every other game does that.
No, I'm saying that I think it's a really interesting perspective. We kind of like, I think, lost sight of those moments as being marketable moments and moments you get really excited about. Um, yeah, it is interesting. And also because also the way they kind of nerf how much glint you can get in wild, right? Is it 60% of what you'll get in modern, or I forget the exact
No,
percentage.
there's a 50% bonus for modern.
Oh, okay, right. They didn't nerf it. Yeah, there's a 50% bonus for
So with
modern.
modern getting a bonus, you could make the price extra expensive,
Right.
to
Yeah.
keep wild bot farms from ever really being able to farm it in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pure, just from a pure marketing perspective, uh, something like Tails pulling that Go Foil Axemaster, and that's the sort of stuff that's going to go viral on Twitter. I just
Yeah,
earned
because you'll post
300
about it
bucks.
and people will be
Yeah,
like, wait, what did you do? You pulled what? It's worth how much? How do I
exactly.
play this game?
Yep, yep. I mean, I'm 100% with you. I'm wondering, what are the titles going to be worth? Is it like I roll the dice and open a title chest and I have a chance at the legendary, or am I buying the legendary outright? What does that look like?
I think you're
Um,
buying it outright. From the post he put out the other day, I think it seems like you save up enough money to buy it outright.
hmm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I feel like cards are way more exciting than titles, right? I feel like how deep in the game do you have to be to even understand what the titles are and what they do? And that's not as attractive to a newer player as
a
like a
gold
gold
foil
foil
card.
legendary card is, right? That's something people can know that, wow, that's great. Like a title, you're like, I didn't even understand the title. It took me a long time to understand why people had titles and what they actually meant. Or yeah,
Well, it
uh,
didn't make sense until land, right?
right.
I mean, land is what
They were
really
just
gave.
cool before that.
Exactly. It was just a vanity item prior to land. And now I know, like, things like the Explorer, or things like, I think there's a one of one floating around somewhere from Kickstarter way back when. Um, but yeah, I'm with you. The exciting bit for new players is cards. And if there was something, maybe you could take it a step further and say, this card, uh, in the exquisite champ chest that you referenced, Mondroid, this card is only available to play in modern. Um, I think there's ways to make it A, exciting for human players, and B, make it really exciting for brand new players playing in modern. Um, yeah, could be cool. Do you guys have any ideas what our title names are going to be? I'll go on the record and say I'll delegate 50,000 SPS to anybody who can name one of the titles correctly
One of the titles for what in the
in the reward shop. So we'll
oh,
find out we'll find out in a few days, but
were they
I'll
not in
put.
the post?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't
If
think
they
I saw anything about
if
them,
if they if
like the
they are,
actual
I'm
name.
I'm gonna feel
Okay.
real. I'm gonna wait till Monday and publish this episode next week.
No, I don't have any ideas. I'm terrible at
Let's see.
guessing.
What's it going to be? Is it going to be something? Is it going to be like a glint pun?
The Glintinator.
Yeah, the glint,
Yeah,
the great glinter. Um, I don't know.
the great
Glint
glinter,
master.
the glintinator, glint master. Okay, I feel like my 50K delegation is safe with you guys.
Yep.
Well, let's talk some fun stuff here. So we've got the updates. I know, Mondroid, you want to talk about the new rating system, but before we get there, uh, let's talk about some of the, maybe you guys make the decision if we talk about this. The legendary summoners. We've talked about it a little bit in the past. Mondroid, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You obviously approach the game a little bit differently, very differently from a lot of folks. What is something, if you had, blank slate to create your own summoner, within reason, what would you what would you provide this guy?
So I really like the way tactics work. It's really cool to be able to see the opponent's lineup and then make an adjustment, right? So like a lot of the time now you go in with Avina, it's like I'm gonna play the heal because I built my team around that strategy already. But there are certain times where you need to pull an audible, and so I really like that aspect of it. I hope the legendary summoners would have maybe multiple tactics, like not just like the two options, but maybe three or four. Maybe they're all kind of niche. They don't like just make all your guys awesome. It might be like give a guy a press, right, for that smith or something like that, where it's not an all the time thing, but every now and then you're gonna be like, that's the perfect tactic for that. That'd be, so I like the idea of more tactics. Um, I'm not really sure like what their plan is for their design. Like, are they going to have stats and abilities too, along with tactics and dual element and all that? But the main thing I would say is I like tactics, but I think all of them, well, not all of them, but like most of them for Rebellion right now are just really lackluster or underpowered.
Yeah, I'd love to see Rekla comes to mind. And when I play Rekla, I've talked to both of you guys about my affinity for that summoner. I think he while he's not the best all the time, I think he's the most fun when I do get to play him and play him
You just really
effectively.
have something for underwhelming depth summoners. It's just like this weird kink you have that you just want to, whatever underwhelming death summoner comes out, you just want to get everybody on board with it.
Hey, I was beating the drum for Astral Entity too, and he's rounded the bend. He's amazing in certain contexts. Uh,
Sorry.
but that is one that I would love to be able to apply one negative health and one reflection shield.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's going to be, to your point, Mondroid, if we've got a selection of four abilities that we can choose from, can I both buff and debuff? That would be a big question for me. Do I have an option of applying multiple tactics? Do
I
you
think
feel
the
like
three abilities, it makes sense for it to be three, right? Because most legendary summoners have three stats, right? Three either buffs or debuffs to them, whereas opposed to the rares have two,
mm,
Yeah, for the
right? Like
most part, yeah.
I can't think of any legendary summoner without three. So it would make sense if there was three. I mean, four would be cool, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense that there would be three, and then maybe you could choose two of the three.
yeah,
That'd be awesome.
I'd even be okay with the idea of one fixed buff or debuff and then selection of tactics
Yeah.
between two. But I think, being legendary, I feel like you should be able to apply one of each. Um, it gets a little sticky with somebody like the uh Boss Fabino with poison. Being able to apply poison and a melee feels like that might be a little bit overboard, but I don't know. I'm curious to see it. We should be getting the initial announcement for the next airdrop here in a couple of weeks, right?
Timing wise, that would make sense with when unless they, yeah. I don't remember when Kai came out, but I feel like Venka, they dropped that pretty quickly. So remember everybody's getting all excited for Venka, and it was like, we've
We
still
haven't
got,
even gotten Kai yet.
we've got like 2 weeks left to get before Kai comes. So yeah.
Mm. Well, I think so Joey, Breaking Benjamin, he's a really good follow on Twitter. If you guys don't follow him, he posts regular updates of what was happening with the team. And I think he posted a couple times last week that they were playtesting legendary summoner stuff. So they've got to be getting close to putting a bow on legendary summoner number one, which is exciting. Do we know or care to guess what is the first element that we're going to see?
Well, I mean, it could be a dual element, right? So I'm
It's
Oh,
got
not.
to be
right.
dual. I think it's almost definite. I think we've almost definitely heard it's dual, right? Anytime we've asked anyone, they've always we're not going to exactly say, but it seems like they're basically agreeing that, yeah, it's got to be dual.
Yeah, so I mean that makes it a bit, well, I guess it makes it easier to predict, right? Because you're gonna get maybe one of them at least. But yeah, I'm not really sure because what are we missing? There's like fire and life, death and water,
A death,
life and
death and
water.
life,
Oh yeah, death and life would be interesting.
death and earth, and death and earth would be a nasty ranged going the distance team. Yeah, it looks like it's Lorcus that's he was 6th on the leaderboard, so he should be I guess it would be his summoner that's released first, I'm assuming. And then YGG pool is last. I'm assuming that they chose dragon, right? If you've got first pick, you got to choose dragon, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
Mm.
Now, will dragon be paired with anything?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't think so. I mean,
Because they already get paired with
yeah.
something. So,
So,
Maybe
or would they get
maybe
paired
it
with
gets
two?
3. That's yeah.
ooh,
We just had that same thought at the same time. Wow. Yeah.
that would be kind of insane. I feel like that'd be so many cards to think about and putting into a lineup.
Yeah,
Gosh, what would your 3
that
be? What would your or are you just gonna choose any 3 you want, you think? Or
I
I mean,
feel
that's
like it
how
would have
dragon
to be
works,
like
right?
that for dragon. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like dragon water and take your pick for number 3 and you've got pretty much game over. Heals,
It'd be so
cleanse.
hard to make the best team out of all that, though.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's the advantage over bots. Or is that the 3 rule set all over again?
I don't know.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
might
it's
be the
tough.
three rule set all
Tough.
over again.
I actually really enjoy the 3 rule sets. I've come to really enjoy it. At first, I was with you, Hep. It's too much, but I enjoy the 3 rule sets.
Yeah, like after
Uh,
like a year now, we're used to it and we're kind of better at it, right? So what the bots we're able to do in like 3 days, we finally, after a year, started to come within, you know, some ability of it. So I don't
Every
know.
mm,
now and then, I feel like there's a time where I'll read the first two rule sets and then the third one just doesn't even cross my mind. And I'm like,
Oh yeah.
oh, well, I
oops.
lose this one.
In fairness, I did that with 2 rule sets as well, but it definitely does happen too. Yeah, and it's so like so flummoxed. Like when I start the match, I'm like, wait, what's going on? I'm like, oh right, that was the rule set. Yeah, that definitely happens. How do you guys feel about the new? This is a bit off topic, but how do you feel about the new neutrals only rule set?
It's pretty interesting, I guess. Like there's a limited selection, so it's kind of, I mean, it'll probably get boring over time, but there's enough to it where it's kind of interesting because you still get to pick your summoner and then like that's kind of just directs like how you're gonna build your neutral team where it's like, okay, well, I picked Yasik and now I'm gonna have these scatter shots still, but Avina's really good in that because you can just give the Smith heal and figure the rest out. But I think it's interesting just because it's so different. You're using so few of like the normal cards you just always want to slam in there, like your easy R's. So I
Yeah,
think it's kind of interesting.
yeah.
It's all right. It's not my favorite. I am a big fan of the 4 and 5 rule set. I feel like that's much more fun and I think that goes a long way in removing the RNG only play. That said, I did just get worked by the opponent brought a Chaos Dragon. I did not, and that was the difference maker. But it does bring a little bit greater of a sense of control because you've got less to work with, obviously. Uh,
And you get to just bring the heat. I love any Monarch rule set where it's just like just bring the big boys out, high damage.
Giant Killer,
You
man.
know,
Swedish Shaman
yeah,
is king in
yeah,
that, and
yeah.
the dragon. I forget her name. The dragon sniper from Rift Watchers with
Oh
Giant
yeah,
Killer.
dude. I didn't even realize that card had Giant Killer until today, probably, right? Because I think that's it at its max level, and I don't think I've really seen that much. Yeah, and I went up against that. Oh, I think I had played my long tail, and I did like the long
Oh,
tail kind of.
game
And
over.
then yeah, next
10
it was just
damage, 10
done.
damage. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what
Yep.
the heck is going on?
KO.
Where did
Yeah.
that come from? I was like, oh, that card is Giant Killer now. Okay.
uh yeah, the neutral only is interesting. I'd love to see more stuff that plays with the mechanics. Like if we could get a seven monster rule set or something like
Oh
that.
yeah, going bigger.
Yeah, I feel like that would be really fun. I'm
How
not the
many
most creative guy.
resurrects can you cram in with a ZR?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. But yeah, I think I like the new cadence of delivery of rule sets. I think we're bound to have some stinkers, but we have had to be fair to the team, we've had a new rule set pretty much every update for the last what 2 months ish. So at least four or five new rule sets. Um,
Yeah.
the Corrosive Ward one, the Reach one, which I think the Corrosive Ward one is pretty interesting.
Is it? Do you ever take that into consideration? Mondroid, do you ever take that into consideration when you're setting your team?
Corrosive Ward?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty devastating to melee. Like if you're playing like a Kelia sneak team, like all your guys are just gonna lose their armor and then they're more vulnerable. It's definitely better for magic and range since they don't proc the armor rip.
Mhm.
Um you definitely don't want to play Mantaroth in it because he just loses all his armor and he can't armored strike anymore. So yeah, I mean it's
False,
interesting.
Rekla.
Rekla.
Did you guys hear me? Rekla. Reflection. I actually had one earlier today that was melee only, corrosive ward for what is it? Fab 4. Um and I went with the Grim Bardon fighter up front, Tidebiter, and those two were MVPs because of the reflection shield, and therefore they had the saved armor. So I think corrosive ward is not as poopy of an ability as I initially thought it was. Because if you're not planning for it, I mean, Mantaroth, he just gets absolutely wiped without that armor. Um, he doesn't do a whole lot of melee damage. The real prize is when you can put two protects on them, and he's throwing eight armor blast damage, and yeah, just devastating the front two, or if there's a taunt melee from anywhere, the surrounding two cards. And as soon as you can negate that with corrosive ward, he's just a meat shield at that point. But Rekla saves the day with the reflection shield, man. Nobody. I still don't understand why I don't see Rekla played more often. I feel like reflection shield is such a great ability, and it applies in a lot of rule sets.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
can definitely be strong. The issue I always have with any of the tactic summoners is it's like, well, I'm not playing Lux Vega now, which is just a straight +6 armor, +6 health, +6 speed to your team. And that is also pretty useful.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
watching. I feel like Lux. I've been playing her a lot more recently. And by recently, I mean ever since the Truls conversation a couple of weeks ago. I've been looking at battles from guys like Yuki, from guys like Truls. I've been sleuthing on your battle feed, Mondroid, and I see Yuki play Lux a lot at a really high win rate. So I've been trying to work her back into my rotation, and she's, I Kelly is still my go-to in little leagues most of the time. And being able to apply that to any team is just such a big advantage. And sometimes that 1 HP makes all the difference. So go buy your Lux
Yeah,
Vegas, folks.
it's really potent. I mean, like a lot of the death team, right, is just kind of glass cannons or whatever. And so, just giving them health and armor and a little bit more speed, that can do a lot for them. the life team, with like your time mage, who's normally pretty squishy, gets +1 HP and armor, and then extra speed as well. So she's just so good in so many ways for like it's so generic, right? Just more stats, but it's like turns out that's really useful in Splinterlands.
100%. Yep. All
Like
right.
it can
Well,
affect your heals and triage too, because if you get to that 9 HP, you heal for 3 instead of 2. So it's just every one of those things just adds up a little bit.
As I say, with Bakjira, when I was, back when we had league caps and playing at gold, it gave Bakjira that 1 extra health, where then it would heal for 4 instead of 3, and it made a huge difference.
Right.
yeah. Well, so speaking of, perfect segue opportunity, new rank system. This is something we haven't talked about yet. Mondroid, I know you have had some beef. You've had a chance to kind of air your grievances with the new rank system. Do you feel like things have improved given the second season? Do you feel like there's still significant chance for opportunity for improvement? Do we need to bring back leagues? What's your take on the new rank system?
So for me, it's actually great. Like I'm at the top of the food chain essentially. So I'm very happy with just the +20 -20. So I'm not losing 36 points all the time to RNG anymore. And in the old system, it really didn't matter much until like the last 2 days where you would try to push to like 4,400 rating. But now it's all just like cumulative, right? So +20, +20 every time you win. So every battle matters now throughout the whole season because you're just trying to keep winning. And I really like that about it. Um, the problem comes from like the lower leagues, where it's very difficult for people to have a 50% win rate without running into like a max deck, and then the max decks have to be pushed down lower. And it kind of just creates all these problems for that situation where we just don't have enough match liquidity. We don't have enough lower level decks. So like for as far as the rating system goes for that, that's kind of where the problems are. But for me, I'm really happy with it as far as at the top goes. It's just slow. It takes me a lot longer to play all my battles now. And that would be my major complaint with it. It's like as we hit like 5,000 rating, we're just getting so spread out that there's not even a lot of people that I can be matched with. So I have to wait the 2 minutes for it to expand the search algorithm, and find me another champ player to play. So all in all, I like it quite a bit, but there are still issues that need to be worked out.
They should expand the search right away, though, right? Like, what's the purpose of it? I mean, given that the most you can win or lose is 20 rating points, anyways, why should you not be matched to anybody in champ at that point? I mean,
Well, I think the way it's set up is yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they want to try to find you somebody as close to your rating as possible, and at least give it a little bit of time. But yeah, it's just, I think it's 2 minutes before it really expands the search, and then I can find an opponent. But
well, hopefully bots from the team go a long way to solving match liquidity, and I don't know if they're going to be employing the old XBOT algorithm to determining teams. That would definitely make it a little bit more challenging, but yeah, hopefully that goes a good way in solving the match liquidity stuff. As far as the lower leagues, what's your take on re-implementation of leagues in some capacity? And I know Hep has been a pretty vocal proponent for the idea of being able to choose your league. And I have subsequently followed suit. I think the community sorely misses the competitiveness that comes with competing at a certain league and not going beyond that. And everybody's on an even and level playing field. So outside of Diamond Champ stuff, what's your take on leagues? Do we need them back? and league locks, should those come into play?
Well, so the thing is like they did try to solve the problem of like people just camping in the lower leagues, right? So I think what they probably should have done was let us choose our league and then just get rid of the leaderboards. So like we would just be, remove the incentive to stay lower, but then also give the people who do have max decks that are stuck in bronze or silver, whatever, right, the ability to just pick diamond or whatever. I think that would have probably worked a bit better than what we've been going through. But now that they're going to implement more matchmaking bots and stuff, like, perhaps that'll do a good enough job to kind of fix this current way we're doing things. But yeah, I think, just letting people pick their league was probably the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, you said the problem with people kind of camping in lower leagues, but why is that a problem, right? Like, why? I don't understand why that was. I get the problem. Maybe it's a problem from the sense that it was harder for people to then get out of leagues, but I think that was more of a result of the using the ELO rating instead of the straight, win-loss rating that we're at now. So I just don't see that people choosing to stay competitive at higher levels in lower leagues was a, kind of a quote unquote problem.
Well, I mean, I think it's tough for new players to just have to face guys like Wei Wei or, my scholar Danny, who's just crushes it in silver tournaments for me on my second account, right? And, you know, kind of like most games or systems, they try to keep like the sharks out of the kiddie pool. So like Silver League is just it's for, the lower players. And so when you have like very strong players staying in silver to play leaderboard or whatever, it's pretty hard for new players to not just get smashed.
Well, it's even harder for them to not get smashed against max level decks, right? At least you're on more of a level playing field. And like we talked about earlier, where you go up against those people and you see the teams they chose, like you can see what they did and learn from them. Like you can't learn anything by just getting freaking stomped on by the
Trounced.
max level deck, except buy more cards, sucker.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that too. I don't think this is ideal either, right? So,
And
that's why I came up with the idea of giving everybody a max ghost card deck or, core set cards. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it just depends on perspective, a lot of it. I don't know. I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer. It's just kind of like who gets to benefit more than the other person in a sense. And they're
Well, I think
choosing to kind of go, favor the bigger holders, like the people with max decks, right, over the little guys. And who knows if that's the right move or not, I'm not gonna really say too much about that, but I think that's just for better or worse what they seem to be going for.
I mean, I feel like we've got to there's got to be a place, because you don't jump in to a game like this and immediately say, okay, I've got $12,000 to invest in a max deck. I don't know if that's what the cost is, but it's probably somewhere close to that. There's got to be room for a support system for the casual guys uh, to come in, test the waters, earn a little bit of SPS, earn some soulbound cards, and I think the ghost card solution is it goes a good distance in trying to address that, but I think there's more that could and should be done, where you're guaranteed that you're going against, when I do start buying cards, that I know that I'm playing cards on an even playing field. Because getting, if everything goes to plan, and this does appeal to a whole bunch of people that want to come in and buy max decks are going to be consistently coming in at bronze and novice and having to fight their way up. That's best case scenario, right? I don't understand how, I tend to agree with you, Hep. I feel like it was a bit of an overreach to completely remove leagues and adjust the rating system. Maybe it was, it should have been incrementally applied with, going back to the A/B test approach. Let's try removing the rating system as it currently exists for the next, I don't know, 4 seasons, and give it 2 months of data collection and see what's what afterwards.
yeah.
But
You know,
yeah.
one thing we just said, you just brought up and made me kind of didn't really think of this before, but yeah, if everybody has the ability to play a max level deck, is it then almost impossible to get out of bronze if you can't choose that I want to start the season in this league, right? Because if everybody's immediately lumped into this group and everybody's got all the cards, there will be the people who take to it quickly. But if everybody's then immediately going to be bad, basically a 50% win rate, right? Then how do you get out of bronze? How do you get anywhere? Again, how do you really get your rating up if you're the idea is that as you get better and you get more cards, your rating can get up higher and higher to earn more, right? But yeah, if you're immediately kind of thrust into the same situation as everybody else, then yeah, where does anybody's rating go at that point? If you're sort of immediately in a situation where you're going to be at, a 50% win-loss rate.
I mean, it's this thing I like to call skill. You gotta get good to get out of bronze.
Oh man.
But no,
Well,
I mean, it's a good point. I mean, I don't know. It's just at that point, everybody's kind of be on the same playing field. And so like,
yeah.
we're old school, so we're used to like the gold and silver and diamond leagues. But to new players, they're not going to really know like, oh, I should have a max deck. I should be in diamond. So I think that'll just kind of be like their new normal in that sense. Like it's not necessarily tied to just card level. But you
Well,
would have the option to like buy, the promo cards or any other card that might actually help you more. So you do have an edge over those basic core decks.
Yeah. But I mean, you even said, to bring back right when we started this, you kind of said that, you're one of the best players in the game. You did not say this. Sorry. I will say that you were one of the best players. You did not come on here saying you, but as one of the best players in the game, you said that, you're really shooting for that like 60% win rate. And that's going to get you into the top, 10, 20 or whatever in champ. So if you're one of the best players in the game and you're shooting for a 60% win rate, how can anybody else, or especially people just starting the game, hope to get anything really above a 50% win rate?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a problem. That's just how do you solve it, right? Because let's say I have a 60% win rate. That means somebody else has to have a 40% win rate. And a lot of the people I get matched with, that's going to be their win rate against me anyway. So, it's weird because the system's designed, like you said, to have a 50% win rate, except for the very best of the best players. We're capable of, no matter what's thrown at us, we're still gonna win more than 50% of the time. So like that's kind of where part of the system just doesn't work, right? Where it's like we just keep going higher and higher in rating because we never hit that area of 50% win rate. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just another difficult part of the system, right? Where should we go back to where some people can win 70% of the time and then someone's getting, 30% win rate and just, then they quit and then the next person on the bottom becomes the 30% guy. So I don't know. It's a tough problem to solve. So
Well, I feel like there's a lot of levers that we can pull to get a better picture of what should win rates be. I think back to earlier in the conversation, removing the heavily weighted RNG factors of the game, like the application of those abilities that proc, removal of the effectiveness of the more evasive abilities, and leaning the meta more to control and therefore skill. We should hopefully have a better picture of what do things look like, and then subsequently what levers do we need to pull, what dials do we need to turn to get there. But I feel like yeah, there should be something done. I know Matt has, he sounded a little frustrated with the huge reaction that was brought forth from the community immediately after the rank system updates, and I think in most cases it was justifiable. The reaction. I think about guys like U.A. and Schnapoon and Hellslash, maybe not Schnapoon, but Hellslash. These guys that have said, I'm pretty much going to throw in the towel on ranked because I'm never going to invest enough to have a max deck. I would rather have all the cards at a certain level than invest the farm in maxing out my whole deck. So I think,
let me ask you real quick. So then Mondroid, you're in a guild with Ula Ocean, right? Do you talk to them? Because they were usually in the top of gold and now their rating's like 2,300, right? It seems like they're not playing ranked really that much anymore.
I'm not really sure. I believe that's one of Bubkey's accounts, and I'm not sure
Okay.
what his arrangement is with the scholar right now, but I mean, I've heard that, yeah, like a lot of people are just, kind of not happy with that in that sense. And, even my scholar for my silver accounts, like, should we just maybe bot in wild and then you can still do the tournaments and stuff, because he likes that. He likes the competitive tournaments, the silver league tournaments and brawls, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
and to
all,
clarify, Mondroid, is that Danny from Niflheim? Is that a fellow Sniffelheimer?
yeah, buddy.
Yeah, he's a killer, man. I think I faced him in the recent YGG silver tournament, and that guy just, I think more brawls than not, he runs with a clean sweep. He's a cold-blooded killer in silver.
Yeah, he's great. I rent him the cards and he kills it, and then, we split the pot and it's all good. But I mean, I think the one thing with the rating system, to just kind of finish that thought out, is ideally we have tons more like silver deck players and gold deck players. And so like right now our game is just super top heavy where, most people got to, I shouldn't say most, but there's a lot of max decks, people invested enough to get all the way to the top of that. And so now that the player base is the way it is, you have to have max decks down to like gold league, right? Because in order for people to have a 50% win rate, somebody's getting pushed down. And that's, since we're so top heavy and so many decks are maxed, it's just working out that the actual silver and gold players are all getting pushed down a step further from where they were used to. And so that's another thing that makes it difficult, is it feels bad to go backwards. And so, ideally we need just way more players and way more accounts with silver and gold decks so you can find a match that's similar to what you're working with.
Yeah, I guess that's the predominant question that we need to answer is the correct step forward focusing on purely maxing decks and creating a more top heavy game. My gut instinct is no. That is not a sustainable solution. If we're only catering to folks that can afford to come in and either rent a max deck for months on end and compete at the top, or make that significant investment to outright acquire the cards and the SPS to play and earn at the top levels of the game, or do we want to have room where you're encouraged to be the best of the best in a respective league? Because right now, Hep, I feel for you, man. That it's brutal, where the only place where you feel like you could play your best is brawls and tournaments. That's kind of a shitty experience, to put it
Yeah, I
bluntly.
mean it's fine. Let's say it's fine. Like it's interesting too because I'm actually on my diamond 3, halfway to diamond 2. Should check what my win rate is now. I don't know if I had a very good day today, but so last season I was at like a 52.8 win percentage, and I was around the same thing this season. And so I can punch above my weight class a little bit. I have a couple maxed out summoners, but only like a couple maxed out cards. Like I do not have many maxed out cards. So, but yeah, and it's it's fun to pull some wins off of some past guests who I won't call
Infidel.
out.
Infidel, I'll call out for you.
And playing lower level cards, and what happens, but more often than that, I just get my butt kicked, and there's really nothing I can do about it. I mean, but it's not, it's okay. I still enjoy it. I still enjoy playing, but it's like, it's not as fun, and it's not, I'm not even watching all my matches because sometimes I'm just like, I'm not winning this and I'll skip it, and that's a weird thing for me because I typically, want to watch all my matches, want to learn, want to know what I could do differently. But, for most of the times now, I know what I could have done differently, and it's have
Drop
bought
another
more
5K.
cards. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's just like not something I'm willing to do, right? Yeah. So yeah, and it's kind of like I wish I could do tournaments more. I just kind of with my time, I like to be able to jump into the game and play a little bit when I have time and not be, like, oh, I have to, do this tournament today at this certain amount of time or whatever. And maybe I need to get back into that more, but yeah, it's kind of frustrating. It's just like it feels like I really liked it when first came into the game and I saw that there was these different leagues, right? Because I played so many other games, and Azakron and I and Dave, we were talking about, I wanted to write a Peak DDR article on this, and I started writing it today. And these are some of the things I've been writing about, is that when I joined the game, I really liked the idea that you had these leagues. Once I understood the concept of the leagues, because I played so many games where people who spent the most money were able to just sort of stomp on people who didn't. And I like that there were these, spaces where you could be relatively equal, right? And it was a choice about where you wanted to be, and a choice about what level you wanted to play at and what you wanted to spend. And it's just like, that having that choice taken away, I think, is what kind of hurt the most. And you're saying like, oh, should we be pushing people to, have more max decks? And, I thought the whole process of this, whole thing was a peace, prosperity, and freedom. And, people could play at different levels and they didn't have to spend as much and they could be here and earn. And, are we taking that away and just saying this is now like a VIP blackjack table in Vegas where, you've got to be able to come in and take the risk that, you're going to drop 20 grand on a deck and maybe you lose a bunch of that money. Maybe you don't, and the value goes up. Sort of changes the whole peace, prosperity, and freedom angle, I think, some. So, it's just kind of disappointing. Like I would, and another thing I'll say too, and is that, if I have not been really buying cards at all, whereas typically I would spend a certain amount of money like every month and buy, or every 2 weeks or whatever, buy cards, because it was like, well, it makes more sense for me to buy Chaos Legion cards, right? If I want to win more games, it makes more sense for me to max out my Chaos Legion cards, but I don't want to do that because that's not something I wanted to do. And so if it doesn't make as much sense for me to buy Rebellion cards, I'm just not buying cards, period. And, maybe that's a better attitude than people who got frustrated and just said, I'm just not playing this game anymore. But it's still, I don't feel great about it. I would kind of like to be buying Rebellion cards, but every time I go to like, maybe I'll buy some more Rebellion packs or something, I kind of get that feeling, well, I'm like, well, this doesn't make sense now. So I'm just not spending any money at all.
Yeah, I can see that. Like for me, I'm still buying like some, silver gold foil stuff just so I don't have to rent it more for my second account, and putting it in the conflicts and getting those airdrop points and all that, still makes some sense to me. But yeah, I totally get it. I mean, it's just, if you can't get all the way up, then why get halfway or whatever, right? And so, I mean, it is definitely a problem. And again, I think that's kind of where like, the max ghost card deck kind of makes sense. But I am optimistic about the team adding, non-earning bots, because, if everybody's supposed to have a 50% win rate, that's kind of boring, right? And it's not, it's like turns out people actually like winning a lot. like a lot more than 50%.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if you add some bots, right, that are just kind of there to take the fall, every once in a while, and help people feel better about their win rate and winning some games and earning some SPS and cards and whatnot, I do think that can help a lot, but then, we'll just have to see if that can work or not and like to scale or not.
Yeah, something else that I want to pick your brain on, Hep, and this is something that I don't think we've talked about as much. One, since we had Yaba on, and he pretty much told you that you will be earning more as you climb up further. And two, since the ranked update has happened, is that true? Are you earning more?
No, I mean I'm not. For the reasons that I think I kind of told him I wouldn't, like I'm going to be winning less matches. And with it's also hard too because I was in gold, like, and there were gold probably had the fewest players. The SPS pool for gold was really higher than anything else. And so that's a hard question to answer, right? Because and I get the point of leveling the SPS reward pools so that it's just equal for everyone in modern instead of splitting it up. I mean, yes, it plays to the whales. It's something the people in Diamond and Champ wanted because they weren't getting, as enough money relative to what they had spent on their decks. And okay, fine. But yeah, no, so I don't know if they had left it in place and still did that sort of equalizing of the SBS rewards across all the leagues. I don't know what I would have been earning. I know I'm not earning as much SPS per win as I was. And again, it kind of like I had that choice, right? Like I knew, and you and I, discussed this multiple times. Like I knew I could play up into diamond pretty easily with the deck I had, right? I had a Lux Vega, I had like a Max Quicks that I had maxed out whatever a while ago, and I knew I could do what I do now. I knew I could get maybe just a few cards up to max level and get up into diamond and probably do pretty well there because there was plenty of people who had, that sort of setup in there. But and I knew I could get more rewards maybe if I did that, but I didn't want to do that. I liked being at the higher, more competitive level in gold than doing that. So, that was an option I always had, right? It was a decision I could make at the time, but it was my decision to make. And it no longer is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another problem, right? Because like I said earlier, how the game's top heavy. Well, like gold was that kind of void zone because like people either like stayed in bronze or silver because that's what they could afford or that's where they liked playing, or you got all the way up to like diamond or champ. And so gold just has just such a small amount of players in it that you guys were earning a ton there. And this is like probably the best place to ROI, right? Like for the earnings to what it costs. And so that definitely, as far as like everybody will earn more, it's like, yeah, that kind of didn't manifest for gold players. They just kind of lost their little advantage and then, ended up playing max decks every time. So
Yeah, we kind of knew it would happen, right? Like we knew we were in that sweet spot. Um, but yeah, that is what it is. To me, it's sort of like the amount that extra 3 or 4 SPS per win I was getting, isn't didn't doesn't mean as much to me as knowing that I'm not going to be is knowing what cards I'm going to be up against and knowing I'm not going to be up against max decks 80% of the time, or you know even knowing that like maybe my win percentage was probably only a little bit better because I wasn't on the same level. I didn't have all the cards, and I wasn't as good of a player as probably the people who were in the top 20 in gold. But I enjoyed trying to, getting close. I enjoyed getting as close as I could. And that was fun to me. It felt more competitive.
Well, hopefully it's
Yeah.
the first step of many to try and fix ranked. I'm gonna call out that ranked feedback survey for anybody who has missed it. We passed the 100 response mark, which I think is a pretty solid data set here. And Hep, I put this in our Discord chat with Dave and Azercon following up on the conversation from last week, and non-champ modern players are, for the most part, very unsatisfied with the new system. And I think, the sentiment that you're sharing is it seems to be right around the average for what the feeling is for folks that are not competing with a max deck. So hopefully, like I said, this is the first step. Matt asked for patience a couple of times, and I don't think it's too much to ask for, potentially going back to the drawing board on fixing this thing. So, maybe the future holds league locks. Maybe the future holds leagues reintroduced without leaderboards. Because I think removal of leaderboards in everything but champ would go a long way to prevent the camping that we saw before, right? If you're good enough to secure first place in gold every time, why would you not move to diamond for bigger earnings? So I don't know, but yeah, remains to be seen. Hopefully we get at least an opinion and some consideration around the idea of adjusting things on an ongoing basis to make a place for competitive silver and gold players, because you guys were hung out to dry with this change. All right. Well, Mondroid, we've ticked off the stuff on our list to discuss. Do we want to open the can of worms that is the recent decision to hire Syler? Is that something we kind of want to round out the episode with?
Sure.
Hep, you want to crack that baby open?
Oh boy, I guess I can. Yeah, I mean, I don't, I, okay, I guess I'll start it off by this, so that how I hadn't really read the terms of service agreement, before, because I knew it wasn't really going to apply to me. And then, after this whole Syler announcement, and everybody kind of talking about how, the terms of service were sort of ambiguous, and or they didn't really cover someone providing the tool. It only covered people who were using the tool. And so I took a look at what the terms of service said, and I think I disagree with that there's any ambiguity.
Well, and for folks that don't know, Hep is he works in the legal realm. He's a degreed lawyer.
So yes, I am a degreed lawyer, I guess is a good way to put it. Yeah, no, I mean, I've written terms of service before. Clients have paid me to do this and look into this. And so yeah, so I said the terms, they clearly state, I'll read them. It talks about what you cannot do. It says, by way of example and not as a limitation, you may not allow any third party to, and then it talks about different things. Then it goes into utilize automated players within the following context: modern format, ranked matches, brawl matches, tournament matches. Yeah, so I just think that that where they say that you may not allow third party to, I think that covers what Syler was doing. I think that covers him. The game's the first party, he's the second party. He was allowing third parties to utilize automated players. in that context. So I think what he did was clearly a violation of the terms of service. I know there's a lot of reasons that people have made that why this is a good thing for him to be on the team, and I agree with those. I think he knows the game, he knows what he's doing, he's clearly very good at it, and maybe he's sort of the best person for the job. But I just think that what he did was a clear violation, and he knew what he was doing, and he knew what he was doing was wrong. And I mean, someone said, "Oh, well, he had that apology," and I was like, I did not think that was really any apology or any recognition of wrongdoing. The statement he had, or whatever that you want to call that, and it just seems like he flagrantly violated the rules. Everybody kind of knew he was doing it. A lot of people know a number of the people who were using a service to cheat, and it's like, well, instead of making this a big messy thing, we're just gonna give him a job. And I've referred to it as, we've now hired the fox to watch the hen house, and there's no repercussions to anyone. And I'm right now not really happy about it. And if maybe he does great things and goes on to make amends, and further down the line everything's okay. But where I sit right now, I'm just not super happy about it. Mondroid, definitely want to get your opinion. This obviously is an issue that affected you really more than it affected me. I'm sure as someone who's fighting for the leaderboard and positions in champ, people using this kind of definitely negatively affected you more than me. So I would love to get your take on it and know how you feel.
So yeah, I mean, as someone who hates the battle helper and hates all that as basically as much as you can, it's pretty disturbing, right? To know that the guy who basically allowed a lot of that to happen is gonna get, a free pass. It seems like all the cheaters are gonna get a free pass. I don't think there's gonna be any bans or any naming to come out of this. And so that's a bit disappointing. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to really say about it. It's like I'm desperate for this to work because I just, from my position, it would be so much better for me if he could actually stop the battle helper. It's kind of weird though, because the guy was adamant that it's impossible, but now he's taken the job to do it. So I don't know. I'm optimistic, but it is what it is. I'm hoping for the best is all I can really say, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, we were talking a little bit off air before we hit record, and I listened back to, once we had the announcement come out a couple of days ago, I went back and listened to the episode that we hosted Syler for last summer. It was after the no bot modern proposal had passed. The implementation of said proposal had not quite happened yet, so it was an interesting window. And Syler, we specifically called out the fact that Syler openly acknowledged and very black and white, plainly stated that he would play ball with the new terms of service. And we started asking some questions, kind of going down the rabbit hole of, well, do we expect to wake up in this new ranked era with a bot-free zone, and questions kind of, like I said, going down the rabbit hole of what could happen if. And a lot of the responses were, in hindsight is obviously 2020, but a lot of the responses were kind of clearly pointing to exactly what transpired. So unfortunately, I feel like there was a plan to continue operating the battle helper post ban. I think it just took time for the number of players who were in the know that this private battle helper was available and could be hired. And maybe there was something to be said for the pacing of onboarding folks to this new battle helper, because it didn't really become obvious that this was happening until December, January, and maybe a big part of that becoming obvious was a result of Untamed exiting, and a lot of the folks at the top of the leaderboard were, or a lot of the, I should say, a lot of the folks competing in Champ were all of a sudden on very even ground. Everybody had access to, for the most part, Max Rebellion, Max Chaos Legion, and fairly even footing with the Soulbound cards. So at that point, it wasn't okay. Well, I've got Kitty. I should, or he's got Kitty. I should have lost that match, sort of thing. So it wasn't until much further down the road that the Battle Helpers kind of reared its ugly head, and then we've obviously seen evidence in some form or fashion of transactions, $50 here, $50 there, monthly recurring revenue going to XYZ wallet. And I still don't know if anybody's ever confirmed that Sylar is tied to that, but all roads point to this being an XBOT run private helper. So yeah, it's a tricky one. Hep, you called out earlier the the fox being hired to tend to the hen house, and my personal opinion is I would rather have Sylar working for us than against us, assuming that all of this stuff stops. So I'm hopeful that in negotiations for whatever this contract looks like between the team and Sylar, that there's a high degree of oversight that's written in to allow the dev team and or Matt to take a look at how Sylar is operating, if he's playing fair within his new role and list of responsibilities. And I think Sylar, whether or not he was the culprit of this battle helper, is irrelevant. His trust is completely eroded in most of the community, and he's got a long road ahead to earn that back. So with that in mind, I am really hopeful that he makes some really big waves in addressing any outstanding battle helper usage that exists. Once his tenure officially begins, because I think it's pretty well known, and Mondroid, maybe you can confirm this, that there's certain guilds that have access to maybe a private in-house battle helper, something like that. And that is to say that it's not the service that people are assuming is being offered from Sylar. So I'm really hopeful and I'm optimistic that he's able to bring. He's obviously a capable developer and programmer. I don't think there's any denying that. We talked about it earlier. XBOT is, and almost immediately became the clear front runner for third-party offerings of automation and subsequently battle help. So he's clearly a capable dude with the technical prowess to kind of navigate this stuff probably better than most other folks. That said, I hope he's able to back it up, and we're officially entering into a new era of battle helper free modern. Yeah, just my 2 cents.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, just if certain players really fall off or not, and what the tournaments look like, or I should say the standings, the final day, whatever, who's landing where. And yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see how it goes, I guess. And like I said, I'm hoping for the best on that, but the worst would be, hey, he's in charge of anti-battle helper and just, still has his battle helper for everybody to use, So we'll just, yeah, I don't know. There's not much else for me to say about it.
Yeah, I would like to see, I don't know if it's ever going to be revealed, but I would like to see the contract. We were doing some rough math off the air, and if Syler was employed by 50 people, $50 a month, that's $2,500 a month. I think the reality was probably closer to maybe 150 accounts. $50 of monthly recurring revenue for each of those accounts. You can very quickly go from 2,500 to 5,000 to $7,500 a month, which is obviously a very lucrative business for Syler, especially if it's side hustle. And once you start moving into that $7,500 a month, that's real world career type money. So I'd be curious to see what does that contract look like. I don't know if it will be revealed, but are we paying him well enough to completely disincentivize any foul play? And is he a full-time employee? Is he on contract? And then to take it a step further, what falls in his responsibility list? Yeah, go ahead, Hep. I know you had something to say.
Yeah, no, I'm hopeful as well. Like I said, Mondroid, I'm hopeful that, in the long term, this is in the best interest of the game. I just feel like in the short term, it's sort of, there's all these issues that are, not being addressed and being kind of swept under the rug. And, it would be nice if they were addressed in some way, or there was something that made you feel good about the situation, right? Or made you feel that you didn't have to have that concern. Right, Jangles, like you said, that this is going to be, he's disincentivized from doing this, right? Because he said before that he's going to work with the team and follow the rules, but then also kind of made it very clear and was going to be shady about it and go behind everybody's back and do this stuff in secret. And yeah, what lessons did he learn getting caught this time that will keep him from getting caught next time? And what advantages does he have that he's now sitting in that, that seat where now this is what he's the one in charge of this. So I don't like to be super negative and be distrusting of people, but I think when people show you that they're distrustful, that they then have to do even more to show you that they can be trusted. And I don't feel like we've even come close to even getting started down that road with him yet. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I will say that there's, as a response to some comments that we've made over the last couple of episodes, some listeners have reached out and have, as of this point, anonymously assumed the role of the vigilante whistleblower. So I think there's been plenty of research done in the background. I think a Splinterlands Wall of Shame is in the works, and if the team's going to choose not to do anything, or to choose to do something, regardless of the decision of the team to either address and apply punishment to said violators or not, the Wall of Shame is something that's coming down the pipeline, and it's my understanding that this is going to be something that's posted on the blockchain permanently. I think there's Twitter accounts and probably YouTube accounts that are going to be made to support this, and yeah, something's coming. I think the community is feeling very similarly to the three of us on this episode, that it's obviously a very polarizing decision, and folks would have liked to have seen said violators and said third-party provider punished and instead of necessarily rewarded. But yeah, maybe there's something to be said for street justice that could be applied. And I would still love if we could, I think I mentioned it with the Trules episode, the irrevocable title of Scarlet Letter. I think that would be awesome. I don't know if we'll ever get that, but maybe the Splinterlands Wall of Shame is the next best option.
Yeah, I'll look forward to seeing some of that.
Nice. All right, gentlemen. Well, Mondroid, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here, man. I know we went kind of back and forth about whether or not we could make this happen. I'm very appreciative that you did take us up on the request and you made an appearance. Before we completely wrap this thing up and put a bow on it, was there anything else you wanted to talk about, address, call out?
Um, Really just the emphasis on making the rewards better, and not just from like an SPS perspective, but I truly believe we just have to make the game more interesting in that regard. If we want people to come here and invest tons of money, getting staked SPS, getting the cards to play, we need to make it more interesting. Right now we kind of do like the financial version of like tightening. We've cut the rewards, we've gotten rid of packs out of chests, we're gone to soulbound cards. And so why would people come and play for those? I just think we have to do something about that to kind of turn things more exciting.
Yeah, that's fair. And something that we didn't mention as a result or potential result of the new reward structure is SPS being the only real tangible asset that is tradable is that additional sell pressure that's being applied to SPS.
Yeah, exactly. It's just constant sell pressure, because anybody who needs to, get more DEC to keep renting cards to keep playing, right? They have to sell their SPS. They have to, keep doing that to keep churning. And so it'd be nice if there were other rewards you could sell to churn, at least to make that enough to keep going. So I don't know. I think it would be more exciting. Like you said, it's kind of free marketing when you can post on X, your big pull or whatever, and get some eyeballs on the game, easy, low-hanging fruit.
Okay, well let's wrap this baby up. Again, Mondroid, thank you again, dude. And I think we've with the amount of times that I tell people they're 100% welcome back anytime. Just reach out. I think we'll probably have the rest of the year fully booked for episodes, but I'm gonna keep doing it anyways. You've got an open invitation here, man. You're welcome back anytime. Anytime you want to hop on and shoot the breeze, talk shop. And as it goes with all of our guests, you've got an open invitation for the battle royale stuff as well. If you're keen to wipe. I don't know if everybody else will appreciate that I'm inviting you on because I haven't I imagine how things will go as soon as Mondroid enters the fray on the battle royale. But it'd be fun to have you if you're keen to hop on, man. You're more than welcome.
We'll see if that modern ranked queue can get a little faster. I'll have some more time on my hands to, to join you guys.
Sweet, fair enough. All right. Any final words from you, Hep?
Nope, said it all.
Alrighty. All right, everybody. Well, hope you enjoyed the show. Been absolute pleasure hosting Mondroid. Lots of food for thought to be taken away from this episode. Hopefully we see some of this stuff grow legs. I'd love the parallel business model to come into play with the deck. I don't think that this is the last that we've heard of it. Hopefully it starts making airwaves in places like Discord and on Peaked. But yeah. Alrighty. Well, appreciate you guys tuning in. You have been listening to
The People's Guild.